Hello, and welcome to Fresh Takes on Tech. I'm your host, Vonnie Estes, and today we're diving into one of the most exciting intersections of science, innovation, and fresh produce. I'm joined by two leaders who have helped reshape what the future of produce can look like. David Marguleas, Executive Chair of Sunworld International, and Tom Adams, CEO of Pairwise. This year at the Global Produce and Floral Show, Sunworld and Pairwise received the Science and Technology Circle of Excellence Award. This is an honor given by IFPA to organizations applying science, technology, and engineering to advance the produce industry. This award recognizes companies that don't just innovate for innovation's sake, but apply technology to create real improvements in flavor, sustainability, grower profitability, and consumer experience. Sunworld and Pairwise earned it through a powerful partnership blending advanced breeding technologies with decades of commercialization experience. Today, we're going to talk about their collaboration, their shared vision for the future, and what the adoption opportunities and challenges they see across the produce industry. So, welcome, David and Tom. This is one of my favorite topics and two of my favorite people. So, I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you.
Thank you, Vonnie.
So, David, I'd like to start with you. Sunworld and Pairwise received the Circle of Excellence Award this year. What did that recognition mean to you and your team?
Well, first of all, we were particularly honored by the award, given that it married two fairly disparate capabilities, but certainly complementary ones that neither one of us could have accomplished on our own individually. It was a recognition of Pairwise's leadership in the molecular gene editing world, where it stands as a leader in adapting varieties and specific traits using molecular breeding technologies that really bode well for crops that we have identified as benefiting from the application of those technologies. And it married those capabilities with Sunworld's own plant breeding expertise, as well as our 5 decades of history as a fresh produce company, introducing novel crops and novel traits to consumers around the world.
Excellent. Yeah, it was great to have you at the show. And we really wanted to honor the collaboration, as you said, of
Yep.
these two different skill sets.
Bonnie,
You
I
go-
was just going to chime in that I wish I could have been there. It was quite an honor for Pairwise, so really honored by getting it. I did receive it in the mail the other day, and
Oh, good. I'm glad.
it's on the shelf in a place of honor
Mhm.
at their facility here in Durham. So
Yeah.
really appreciate it, and the recognition from IFPA about the importance of this collaboration and what it can do for produce, I think, is really meaningful.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy.
I particularly enjoyed the photo of me representing both Pairwise and Sunworld, along with Max, who was misidentified in a number of news articles that followed as being Tom Adams. So the younger strapping version of Tom appeared in many trade publications.
That's why I've been getting all these notes about how I was looking a lot better. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's very funny. Okay, Tom, turning to you. Can we talk about how this partnership between Pairwise and Sunworld came together and what made this the right moment for this collaboration?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that happened, and Pairwise, we've really adjusted our business strategy where we really are looking for partners like Sunworld because we recognize the value of the distribution networks they have. So we've been successful, and I know we're not talking about blackberries today, but we've been successful with a couple of important edits in blackberries, including removing the pit from the druplet in the blackberry. Really is the prelude to being able to remove the pit in a cherry. So we were actually at a dinner a couple of years ago. I happened to be seated next to David, and we were discussing a little bit some of the progress we made. And I think we both shared the idea that it's time to get together and try to create a pitless cherry, which I think we're on our way to do.
Wow, that's exciting. And we can talk about blackberries too. So I think I'm so close to this and have been watching these developments for so long that I feel like I may be skipping over the people that might be listening that are talking about that wonder like what is this that you're trying to do and what's the technology and how is this different? So Tom, why don't you give a just an overview of kind of your technology and how and what the benefit of doing breeding the way that you're doing it is?
Yeah, I think that, CRISPR technology has been around for a little more than 10 years now, and it's basically a adaptation where we're able to do very precise changes within the genome. So it differs from GMO rather than bringing in traits from other organisms. You're actually working within the same genetics that Mother Nature works with. Typically, doing things that already exist, they just need to be brought together. So it allows you to do something like identify some genes that are involved in making the pit and remove them. So it's not adding something, it's removing a gene and then you remove the pit. And it gives a very precise way of doing that. Couples with breeding really well because you still have 30,000 other genes that you need to be segregating to create great flavors, great yields, et cetera. And being able to combine them together, I think you create a pipeline of different things that is much more efficient. I think there's some mutations out there, for instance, that could probably be bred to get to a pitless cherry. Probably take you 100 years of back crossing, et cetera, to have a good cherry. But we can do that in a few years. And again, coupling with a breeding program like what Sunworld has, I think you can then expand its use.
A little known fun fact about me is I did my thesis work on cherries at Davis.
Did not know.
And yeah, I know it's been a while. One of the things that I really working in the cherry industry in the Central Valley, and this is true wherever cherries are grown. When cherries are ripe, they are ripe, and everyone's fighting for the same resources to get them harvested and to get them into the pack plants, and it's such a compressed short period of time. Can you do something about that? Is that one of the traits that you're looking at of kind of elongating or different varieties that come ripe at different times in the same region?
Yeah, I think that could be something that to consider. I'm not sure that you really want to change that because it makes it very efficient to pick because you just go through to pick once, which I think you might not mind doing with some other fruits to make it so you got
Yeah,
one picking
that's a
process.
good point.
But if you could stagger the
Yeah.
ripening so that they're not all ripe at the same time, which I think is definitely approachable. And even on our path towards making the pitless cherry, I'll tell you, we've already changed some of the environmental responses for flowering so that we're making cherries. We've essentially made cherry trees into primocane cherries. So new wood is creating cherries on it. So you can
Oh,
make cherries. I mean, the first thing to do if you're going to make a pitless cherry is to make cherries faster so that you could test your genes. And we've already done that. And that, I think, starts setting up the idea that you might make cherry trees that are really more like a bush that you could grow underneath a house, like a blueberry, and not have to worry about rain on it, et cetera. That's not the core of what we're doing, but it might be the sort of thing that'll come out of the work we're doing together.
I think that's also where that combination of capabilities is going to yield huge gains for the produce industry. We can effectively take an edited variety and create multiple edited varieties, much like we're doing in our classical breeding work to develop a line of cherries that are available from the early growing regions with the characteristics that are often found in parts of Queensland, Australia, the Coachella Valley, and southern San Joaquin Valley of California, the northern parts of Chile, and elsewhere, and then develop some higher chill varieties that can be grown over the course of the following 6 or 8 weeks. And we think there's an opportunity to apply the wonderful work that Pairwise is doing to create that pitless product across an entire line of crops, much like we've done with stone fruit and table grapes. And more recently, we're starting a mango breeding program that has the same opportunities to create a line of varieties that are available over a longer period of time. That creates efficiencies for the grower, for the packing house, for the retailer, and certainly enhances the accessibility and availability of the varieties for consumers.
So, David, we first started talking about gene editing. I think it's been at least 10 years ago,
Mhm.
maybe more. It was wrong time, wrong company, just the time had not come yet. So besides Pairwise being so great, why did you decide to pursue this concept now, and why is this the right time?
Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, we recognize the capabilities that Tom and his team have as being really special, and in particular, working with perennial specialty crops like cherries and berries and other fresh fruit items. I think the second compelling item for us, or reason for us to embrace this joint venture, has to do with the fact that it fit perfectly in our efforts to introduce convenience traits in the fresh produce industry. So you'll recall that we introduced the seedless watermelon to the American consumer in the late 1980s. We've had a string of seedless table grapes, including some of the first seedless varieties introduced many years ago. More recently, introducing seedless mandarins on behalf of a number of breeders around the world that today comprise a number of the branded lines of mandarins that one sees in the produce department, as well as the introduction more recently of seedless lemons that came from our program that we acquired from the BioGold Group last year.
Love those.
And then if you think about the opportunities and you close your eyes and you dream a little bit and you start to think about beyond removing the pits in cherries, all of the other crops that would benefit from the same technology and the same convenience interests that consumers have with the seed in mangoes and the pit in avocados and the pit in stone fruit. You start to think about the real opportunities to change the face of the produce department.
Excellent. So, Tom, I have seen so many collaborations that you've been getting into recently. Every time I open up LinkedIn, it's like another great collaboration. And so it seems like, I don't know if this is just as the company matures, or what's happening in your business strategy and your work, that there's all these different collaborations popping up that are really going to help agriculture and produce overall.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to step back there first, there's sort of two levels of collaborations. There's the really deep relationship like we have with Sunworld, and then we are broadly licensing the technology that we've developed. And I think we didn't exactly set out to do it, but over the last couple of years, we were able to develop a CRISPR system that's pretty all encompassing in terms of the types of capabilities that you can use for changing things. And it's actually outside of some of the foundational IP in the CRISPR space. So it's really proprietary to Pairwise. And we made the decision that, one of our missions is to make food easier to grow and easier to eat, or one of the ways we like to express it. And that we could do that a lot better if we let everybody do it. So we've made it pretty easy for people to license these tools from us. So we're really trying to I don't know if that's still the right analogy, but we sort of see the fulcrum inside as, compare.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's Intel anymore. Maybe it's NVIDIA inside, but the
Yeah, exactly.
fulcrum inside idea that, if you get everybody using fulcrum, make it easy. And there's lots of different places that we're just not going to be able to apply, do the work ourselves, but other people can develop the traits there. So that's why you're seeing so many. And I think, again, we've created a pretty strong tool set. It's demonstrated by the type of partnerships that we have, how strong it is when, a Corteva is and Bayer and many other partners that, have access to other tools as well, wanted to get on the Fulcrum platform, I think is a demonstration of how valuable it is. So other parties. Now, the other thing that's happening is, you see some of the European companies stepping up now, like we just did Enzazaden recently. And that's, I guess, just last Friday, the whatever they call the Trilateral Commission came up with their what hopefully will be the final set of rules that just need to be voted on now by the nation. So they finally came with
In Europe.
the unified thing in Europe, which is huge to start opening up. And it's you know it could be a little bit more open, but it's a great start towards what regulations can be and really drive a global regulatory path for these products.
Yeah, it makes such a huge difference. I mean, David and I talked about this 10 years ago. So right then there was Europe was completely closed. There was no way they were accepting it at that
Mhm.
point. And so I remember David saying, if I can't sell into Europe, or if I have to keep everything separated, this doesn't make sense. And so that finally things are really starting to line up. So I have a question, just number of questions from what you said, but in talking about your Fulcrum platform, I mean, Corteva specifically has a ton of IP in gene editing. What is it about Fulcrum that is of interest to them? That so it's not the IP or the technology per se; it's the platform. So what are you doing
Yeah.
differently?
So one of the things, so we early on when we were licensing technology, we licensed the base editing technology out of David Liu's lab at Harvard, which allows you to do much more refined changes rather than just what most CRISPR technology is scissors and cutting DNA and hoping it comes back together the right way. So with base
Mhm.
editing, you can make very precise changes. And because of that, we ended up spending a fair bit of time developing these tools that enable different types of editing. So we've got a whole suite of things that go from a scissor to the base editing and also some of the templated editing tools that Prime Medicine is based on. Really a pretty complete set. And again, they are um, optimized for plants. So they're, so much of the CRISPR work goes on to optimize for humans and
Right.
plants. There's even some advantages to not being as precise as you need to be in humans, since you want to make variation around some of these genes. So it's I think it's just seen as a really good set of tools. And yeah, Corteva is clearly putting a big play into gene editing overall, and I think they see it fitting into their platform. And I think, if you talk to Sam Ethington, he likes to say that he saw it as 1 and 1 equals 3, and I like to think that's true.
That's really amazing just to think about how far things have progressed and how important collaboration is, and to have these companies working together. Where at the beginning of the CRISPR diaries, it was a lot more competitive and people weren't working together. So I love to hear that.
Yeah, and that's been our belief as a smaller company in the space, that the and it's a technology that should be used by everybody, but the we partnership is there's it's very complicated to bring a product to market, and we certainly got an education in that when we brought the conscious greens to market. Having partners again like Sunworld who know how to bring genetics to growers, that just cuts a lot of the risk out of the whole program.
Yeah, like David said, with 5 decades, like, you're never catching up, So, having a company like Sunworld to work with in
Yeah.
their genetics is so powerful.
Yeah, I think the other aspect that we haven't touched on is the reason that commercialization is so viable for this project in particular is the fact that we have about 4,000 growers in 18 countries that are growing a wide range of crops that we've bred or that we represent other breeders with. And so the opportunity to introduce a pitless cherry more quickly over a much broader space in a number of countries is really critical to the launch of this venture. And then the regulatory hurdles that Tom spoke to with regard to Europe and more recently the United Kingdom and a number of other geographies is going to do nothing but catapult this kind of technology and our licensed growers' willingness to grow these edited crops, given the reception that we anticipate them having in the marketplace.
So this is something, we've all talked about in produce, trying to get, I've been working on this since I've been at IFPA and trying to really get acceptance and pull through of gene edited. And what everyone has been saying is that if you give consumers something that they want, the barriers really start coming down. And that's what you guys are focusing on, is really finding consumer traits, like this, that consumers really want. But I was having conversations with retailers, and the retailers were saying, no, we're not going to carry this. And they said consumers don't want it. And so it's really, and I said this several years ago. People were saying, well, asking me, well, how do you think this change is going to come about? And I said, we're going to develop something consumers want, and then the rest of it kind of falls away. So, how do you guys see the changes, especially in Europe and in different places? What do you still think we're still going to have consumer barriers? Or are we going to have to tell people that it's being gene edited, and what will the response be?
we think it's really important to be transparent that technology was involved. And I think somebody told me early on that you can only be transparent before people ask. So I think it's really important. That said, I think the approach to that, because we are going to market through partners, and even with Sunworld, you're going to go through different people's brands besides just the Sunworld brand. That you need to work with your partners to get the right way to do it. So I think that we'll see those things play out. But I think you lead with the benefits that you're giving the consumer, and don't hide the fact that technology was used, because people will call you out on that. And I think we'll be very successful.
Yeah, we would agree wholeheartedly. And while we're not in the business of bringing fresh produce to market in the way we were for many decades, we're very cognizant of the commercial marketplace and the sensitivities that a number of markets have to technology. We've been using classical breeding methods for a number of years, many years, as have other breeders. We've started to introduce marker-assisted breeding and a number of other molecular tools. And the pairwise technologies are just another step forward in being able to address specific traits, ideally that are consumer facing and important to consumers, like the convenience traits of pitless cherries.
And just to build on that, we do have our blackberries now in the field, and we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm both from growers and from consumers, both for a high yielding, high density blackberry we've created. It's nobody's going to complain about getting 50% higher yield or more seasons in a year. And the seedless ones are a little bit behind the high density, but they're pretty exciting difference. In fact, we should have some in the field down by in the sort of Oxnard area next summer, Ronnie. If you want to come down and taste some, we'd be happy to host you.
I would love that. So, are you going to bring those to market yourself, or what's your thought on
We're
commercialization?
bringing them to. We're partnering with grower packer shipper basically. So we're not going to brand them ourselves. We're using the partnership to get it to market.
So when both of you talk to growers about your genetics and they've been gene edited, what's the conversation like? Are they still asking the question, am I going to be able to sell this to retail, or ha- they what's that conversation going like now?
We I guess we're sort of at the front line. I'll let David say maybe at a higher level with their front line, which is further out in time. We're seeing lots of enthusiasm from growers. I don't think the question is them. There is concern about the retailer. So I think as we get start things going into the market, that's going to be a little bit of a barrier, but it doesn't feel like a big barrier, I would say, where we are right now. And I'm sure, David, you're having conversations since we had our announcement as well.
We work with about 150 marketers that are licensed to handle Sunworld's varieties and to use our brands in the marketplace. And as I mentioned previously, those marketers are based in 18 different countries around the world, most of whom are focused on selling their product to the European community as well as Asia and North America. So these regulatory hurdles are really important. I think not only to give comfort to the grower that's growing these products using that technology, but also because it tends to help influence the consumer concerns and activism that have traditionally been so present with molecular bred crops, including GMOs, but also gene editing until fairly recently. So most growers, I think, are starting to embrace the technology once they understand what it entails and the benefits to them and their customers and their customer's customer. It's certainly going to take time, and we're very cognizant of the need to, as Tom mentioned, be transparent with the grower community and certainly with the outreach that we have to retailers in all parts of the world that are looking for these kinds of innovations.
If
At the end of the
there's
day, it's hard to argue with a pitless cherry at the end of the day. It's very
exactly. If there's anything I can do, just using our IFPA voice, I'm working with retailers or growers or pull through. I'm always happy to use my megaphone where I can, like this podcast.
I think you bring up a great point. The supply chain that IFPA is deeply involved in through its membership is going to be a critical way of communicating with everyone from the breeder to the consumer and everyone in between, and particularly with the global footprint that the International Fresh Produce Association has, and the ability to bring all parties together to understand not only the technologies but how to communicate those technologies to the public is going to be critical going forward.
And I think also on the policy side, as we are getting more and more involved in those conversations globally.
Yeah, most definitely.
And I think you guys have been really good champions of technology and produce for years now, and we've really appreciated that partnership.
David started that. Well, as we bring it to a close, have to ask the crystal ball question. So, Tom, as you think about, I think for you, thinking about new tech, like what new technologies over the next 5 to 10 years do you think are going to show up that we're not imagining now? And then, David, for you, I'd ask more on the produce side, what you think we're going to see, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Technologies that we're not imagining now. I think over the next 10 years, we're going to be seeing more and more applications of how we can marry breeding together with gene editing tools. And, for instance, we're doing more work where we're not just making knockout mutations, but we're making mutations that actually behave in a dominant way so that when you put that into a breeding program, you can be much more efficiently creating more varieties that have that trait and carry that trait forward. And that's, with the AI technology that we can use for designing and learning faster than we did before, I think you're going to see more and more things. At the same time, 5 to 10 years in plant breeding is still a short amount of time. So
Very.
I think we'll see faster cycles, but it's still going to be take a little while before it's totally permeated. I think that's going to be the big play is genetics as a driver of all of the things that we do in agriculture.
Yeah, and it's that combination of the germplasm and the breeding that classical breeders like Sunworld and others are doing with the technology expertise of companies like Pairwise that we think is really unique, and it's a powerful combination that is going to deliver lots of innovation to fresh produce and elsewhere. It also is a reminder that we're really in the golden age of breeding right now and have so many tools available to us to address both consumer and grower traits of interest, with pitlessness and the convenience traits that we've talked about being right up at the top of that list.
And maybe just to add, I think one of the things that has been sort of emerging the last couple of years is using these tools to get disease resistance, which has been really a barrier in getting away from chemistry and getting other solutions for that. So I think that's going to be one of the big plays that gene editing will bring, is to bring more and more disease resistance. And I think you can see that kind of focus coming from some of the big players as well, like Corteva.
If you look at in the fresh produce world, diseases like HLB on citrus and powdery mildew on table grapes, and a number of other diseases that afflict other produce crops that are traded internationally, there's huge opportunities to create value and to address a lot of limiting factors for growth in growing these, particularly the permanent crops that represent such a massive investment for growers over time.
I loved what you said about being the golden age of breeding. I think the three of us have been around long enough to see these cycles of where, breeding was almost a bad word and then everything was going to be solved by breeding. And, we've gone through these different cycles. And I was just thinking the number of conversations I've been in the last 2 weeks where someone else, we're talking about AI or we're talking about disease or we're talking about all sorts of different things. And someone else will stand up and say, breeding is we have to remember that breeding is a great way to solve this. And I just am hearing it all the time. So I love that. It's always been true, but now we get to do it.
Well, and if you take a page from Tom's book just for a minute, Pairwise talks a lot about wanting to increase consumption of fresh produce and making product more convenient and taste better and last longer and be more visually appealing and have more nutritional value is going to do nothing but increase consumption, which is something I think near and dear, certainly to IFPA and to Pairwise and to Sunworld, but should be true of everyone throughout the produce supply chain.
And to people having a healthier diet.
For sure.
Yeah, most definitely.
Well, thank you both so much. I love this conversation and working with both of you. And thanks for the contributions you're making to people's health and the produce industry.
Thank you, Vonnie.
Thank you.
And thanks, Tom.
And thank you for the recognition with the award at the IFPA. It's really, really an honor.
Yeah.
Looking forward to making some pitless cherries with you, David.
As are we.